Hey, guys, out to these Pelzer here with another episode of the Speak Easy podcast, where we go behind the scenes talking about what it means to be the successfully paid speaker and author. I am your host, out to these Pelzer, your voice manager, and I am really excited about this topic. Now, honestly, many of you would probably say, I don't know if this is really a topic to say you're excited about. No, I'm excited about. One of the reasons why I bring you the guests that I bring you is because I want education to happen. And education is so much more than what we learn in a book. It's so much more than what we learn in a school. Education is what we learn from the experiences of others. So I'm super excited to see and hear your responses to this particular episode. So with that being said, guys, we're going to get into today's topic. Guys, oh my goodness. Okay. So I actually know a few people who are HIV positive, which is why this topic is so important to me. And not just that, but because what I want us to discuss today is the fact that many think this is a death sentence, and it's not. And so we're going to dive into some things. We're really going to hit on a few things that are probably some myths that you may have heard or, that may be circling around in your circle. But with that being said, I want to say hey to Nakeisa. Hey, Nakeisa.
Hi, thank you again for having me on the show. I'm so excited. But, I'm an exciting person. So I'm just really happy to be able to share my testimony and to also educate people, because it's not just about what I've been through. It's just we have to get educated about HIV.
Most definitely.
Most definitely.
And now tell them a little bit about yourself, because I definitely want them to know who you are, who they about to talk to.
Yes, so I'm Nakeisa Jackson. I am an author, a speaker, and I also do HIV advocacy for women living with HIV who also deal with mental illness. That's really my major focus. I focus in more so on the love and acceptance aspect. I do some prevention education via YouTube and different social media platforms. But I also have a book. I'm an author of a book called Life-After-HIV, Removing the Mask. And here's my book right here. And it's really about my own life story and how I lived in secret for over 8 years. I realized that my life was good. I got married, even though I was expected not to. I was told I wouldn't. I had a great career in the nursing field. I was diagnosed at a very young age. I was 18. So I was told I wasn't going to do anything. And at that time, I think the survival rate was about 10 to 12 years. And this year makes 13. So a lot of things have changed. And I just want to share with the world that we can overcome. So that's a little bit about who I am.
And, that speaks volumes, because when we think about HIV, it's still pretty like a taboo topic, which I don't understand. And I said this to you before we started. I don't understand how in 2020, it's still a taboo topic, or still a topic where we don't really have as much information as we should.
Yes. I think that is taboo because people still have the view of what they've seen from the 80s and the 90s where people were dying, which that was not HIV. That was actually AIDS, an AIDS diagnosis. So myth number one, HIV and AIDS are two different things. You cannot get AIDS from anybody. HIV is what is transmitted, which is the virus that causes AIDS. And AIDS is a syndrome of what you call different diseases, like different cancers or viruses that only come when your immune system is very, very, very weakened. So that is the difference. So what we saw was AIDS, not HIV. And since a lot of us living with HIV hide in secret because of the stigma, because we think somebody thinks they're going to get it if we touch them, if we're by them, and because people really, there's just this fear and just this huge fear is the biggest thing. They're so afraid that we're afraid to even share our stories. We're afraid to even say like, hey, I'm living with this and I'm living a really, really good life. But we're afraid as soon as we say something, then we lose friends, we lose family. People start treating us differently, like we're just going to look at them or breathe on them and then we're going to give them HIV. And that's not how it's transmitted at all.
Now, again, one of the biggest things is, of course, the not wanting to tell anyone. The ones that you have to tell, and the ones that you're like questioning, should I tell? And so that's that whole in between space, because I've dealt with some people that were close to me that when they did say something, man, they got backlash in a way that wasn't really what I thought people would be like the response. Yeah. What have you come across when it comes to the response of telling people?
Well, it just depends. So in the beginning, I told like a aunt, went well. I told a best friend, it went well. I told my mother, it's a mediocre response. And she kind of convinced me never to tell another person, because she was like, no, if you tell another person, like she was really, really afraid for me. So that helped me stay kind of in bondage. And so as I dated, I would get people that I would tell, and they would immediately just stop talking to me. So I got the most backlash from like trying to date, because I would tell them and I would give them all the education, like, because now if you take your medication like you're supposed to, you won't be able to transmit as long as you're undetectable, which means your viral load is so low that it can't transmit to anybody else. So it's like treatment is also now a form of, it's called a harm reduction technique at this point. It's not prevention. It's called a harm reduction because it reduces the chances to zero. But so it's just like, I got those kinds of responses. And then like, as far as like friends go, I just would notice that it never was straight out, I'm not okay with this. It was just over time, I could see the separation. And then it was like, don't talk about it. It was kind of like, you told me you have this, but I don't want to talk about it. So I would be able to pick up on that, and then eventually they kind of just spread it out. But for me, the type of person that I had become before I started telling a lot of people, I had already got to a place where I was okay with me. So I was okay with losing people. In the beginning, it was hard, so I stayed hidden. But I eventually just got to this place where I love me more than what they thought of me, more than how they tried to make me feel, because I did enough self-stigmatizing myself. So I was not willing to take it from other people. It just wasn't an option for me, because I went through depression by myself. Like, I went through my thoughts by myself. I've been dealing with this since I was 19 years old. So for me, I had to build up to that. I build up to this place where I'm like, Nakeisa, you're beautiful. Like, you living your best life. You love you. It doesn't matter who leaves, who stays. That's you the blessing. That's how I had to start thinking about it. You the blessing. They stayed, they have a blessing, and you have a blessing. They left, they just missed out on something.
Exactly.
So that's how I dealt with that.
Oh my goodness. And I definitely understand. Okay, so the conversation with mom, I can definitely understand that, because as parents, it's like immediately you're like in, oh crap, my baby mode. Yes. Oh crap, my baby. So yeah, that kind of protection thing is interesting. When we think about it though, we've gone through stages when it comes to HIV and how we look at it, because at one point it was, oh, well, I couldn't get HIV because that's only people that are on the down low get HIV.
Yes.
And then it was, oh, well, I can't get HIV because I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Like, literally, I can tell you, people have had some of the strangest things.
Yeah.
They said, oh no, I can't get HIV because of this, or I got HIV from somebody because of this. And you're like,
no.
That wasn't what I learned in school.
Yes.
But I don't even think they're still teaching about HIV in school.
Yes. So I live in the South. I live in Georgia. And in Georgia, abstinence only education is still here in the school system. So they have to call outside people to come in and talk about HIV. We have to have community events to talk about HIV. In the schools, still abstinence only. So, but I think they're getting a lot better about bringing people from the outside, like the board of health departments. And here they even have signs about, they have more signage and they raise more awareness than they did like when I was in high school. When I was in high school, we used to have one program and all the people were really, really older and they all were like people who may have used to inject drugs. So I thought I didn't qualify. Like I used to think, you know, it's so funny. I remember being in school and I'm like, why they have this? Because I can't relate because I'm not an IV drug user. I had the same thoughts. I'm not sleeping with a man. I mean, not with a man. I'm not sleeping with a gay man or something like that, or I'm not a gay man. That's what my thing. I'm like, so I have heterosexual sex and women don't get HIV. Even though I'm seeing these women, it was like, oh, they was IV drug users and they shared a needle. So that was my thought process. But all I knew was to get tested. I never knew what if it's positive. They don't talk to you about that. They just say get tested. And you always hope that it's always negative. And that was not the case for me one time when I got tested. So
now I want people to have this understanding because I've been there with someone who called me after they got their test results. And it's, you know, that first 24 to 48 hours after getting those results, it's almost surreal for the individual because you're like trying to grasp a hold of it yourself, trying to figure out who do I need to talk to, what's my next step. And so for that, especially being 19, that first 24 to 48 hours, what was really going through your mind?
Well, so my first 24 hours started very early in the morning because I got tested at a health department. And I just thank God now that I got tested because I wasn't going there for that. I was going there for something totally different. And I got tested for HIV in the process. And somebody called me the day before and was like, hey, I need you to come back in. So when I walked in that office and he told me my results, because he went through all the good stuff first, like, oh, this is negative, that is negative, that is negative, but your HIV results are positive. I immediately started crying. I just looked at him and he kept talking. He was talking and asking me questions. And I just got up and walked out because I was like, why he still talking? I'm gonna die tomorrow. Like I literally was like, I'm about to die. So there's nothing you could say to me at this point because I'm going to die. So I walked out and my roommate actually came up there with me. So when she seen me immediately, I disclosed because I could not hide what was going on. It was obviously something wrong with me. So he tried to get me to come back. I refused to go back with him. I told him I'd come another day because I can't talk to you about all this right now. I need to deal with my emotions. So my first 24 to 48, I tried to be strong the first 24. I went back to my dorm room because I was in college in Alabama. I wasn't even in Georgia. I was in college. And I was like, I gotta go to class because I'm in school and now I'm such I'm a brainiac. Like I'll be a professional student forever. I love school. So I was like, I gotta go to class. You know, I got a test. I gotta go. So I tried to go to class. And I had a friend at that time who lived in the apartments on campus. And he was in class with me and he saw me. And I was literally crying the whole entire class. I cried the whole class. And he was just like, no, we got to go. Like, we just walked out in the middle of the class. He was like, you coming with me. We going to my apartment because I don't know what's wrong with you. You ain't never like this. And even if you don't tell me, you can't stay here. Like, he's like, you cannot stay here. So he took me back to his apartment. And I just remember being in like a daze. It was like I wasn't even here. I wasn't on planet Earth. And I just had got saved that January. This is April. So I was really mad because I was like, God, why would you save me to tell me this? This does not make any sense. You could, and this is when I used to think God was a magician. So I was like, you could have just got rid of it. And so I spent a lot of time just being in deep thought. And then I had to think about like where did it come from, which I was about 99.9% sure where. And I just, I started thinking about him and like how he treated me towards the end of our short-lived relationship, and some things happened with us to where I just started thinking about all these things that had happened and how my life was over. So eventually I went home and I just slept. I slept for like 2 days. And then after 2 days, I might start going to do research Because I was like, you got to show me something, God. But I heard his voice and he told me, you worried about dying? You need to worry about how you're going to live because you're not going to die. And that was the first time I could honestly say, I know I heard him. And I was like, what? And he started to speak to me about what I was going to do with it. And I'm not going to do that, Lord. A book? I'm not going to write a book. No, what you talking about? And then he told me to go be a nurse. So then it kept getting bigger and bigger. I was like, why am I doing all these things when the world says I can't? And now, 12 years later, I see why. So all of those 2 days, probably first months were horrible. But I finally start to see why. In the last 3 or 4 years, I can see how he was using that for his glory. So,
and that speaks volumes because, again, we talked about how most people, when they get that initial they get that positive, and they're like, "That's it. I'm done. I'm gone." And here it is, years later, you've been able to write, publish books. You've been able to be a speaker. You've been able to be an advocate. You've been able to be a nurse.
Yes.
And that was always that thing of, well, no, because I gotta be super safe with everything, and I can't do my dream job anymore.
Yeah.
I can't go after my goals. And it's not that. Like, that was the thought process then, but that's not how life is lived now.
No, it's not. That's not. And it's, I don't know, it's just amazing to see that things are changing. Although there's still miseducation, things are changing. And they're changing slowly but surely. And I just thank God that God has created platforms for people to be able to freely speak about HIV and not feel like it cannot cross into other fields. Because it needs to be talked about, because anybody can be diagnosed with HIV. If you're having sex, you can get an HIV diagnosis. If you are IV drug user, you can get an HIV diagnosis. And unfortunately, even though we have good testing, good medication, babies can still get HIV. The chances are very, 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 very low. So one thing I want to make sure I stress is make sure your doctor tests you. If you get pregnant, test for HIV before, during prenatal care, and before you deliver. Get a mouth swab before you deliver, because you can stop the virus from passing to your child. A child does not have to have HIV in 2020. And I just want to say that.
Yeah, that's definitely important, because there's so many different avenues that can be going down. There's so many different things. We didn't build AI robots, guys. At this point,
yes.
At this point, you have to understand, we've come a bit of a ways from when we first started hearing about people getting HIV, and we have to upgrade our thinking, upgrade our minds, to realizing that there's so much more that can come from this. So I'm super excited that you are advocating. I'm so super excited that you are speaking up. One of the things that I've always found is that, you know, when we get into that space of being the voice of, you know, for whatever else is going on, people, you know, look at us and they say, okay, well, you know, you've overcome it already. You've you know, done it all. You're good. So for those that would look at you and say, well, she's advocating for everybody else, so she should be all right. Is that the case?
Okay. So I want to dispel the myth. No, that's not the case. I still have to deal with my own diagnosis. I still have to deal with what I call 5% days. So 95% of the time I am better, but I did the work. So what a lot of people don't realize is that I hid for 8 years. I hid behind this mask for 8 years. I wouldn't tell anybody unless it was a need to know basis. So if you weren't my doctor, or you didn't know from when I told you that first year, or my husband who knows now, of course he knows. If you're not them, I wasn't telling you. I wasn't going to tell you. So when I did come out with and be public, I got a lot of great praise and I got some backlash, and it was hard for me to deal with because I had put myself in this box where I loved and accepted myself, and people who knew did. But now I'm exposing myself to a world where everybody does not agree. So actually, I probably deal with a lot more, because if I was doing okay. Like, sometimes I think people forget that, like, before I share my story, I was all right. I had got to a place where I loved myself. I was good. Medication, I don't have to worry about transmitting it to my husband. We were good. Like, we were safe. I could have babies. Like, I was happy. But I came out because there are people who still needed me. So I took the risk and became the voice in the face on, I have to. It was like, I have to. I'm doing a disservice. I have to show people how I overcame. But while I'm overcoming and I'm public, people still have their thoughts. They still have their myths. People still comment crazy stuff on my YouTube videos. Thank God I got some good YouTube fans that may say something back to them. But they still comment on my YouTube videos. People still have views on me wanting to have a baby. People still have, people still think if you have HIV, you should not want to have a baby. That's just the statistics. People think you're selfish because you want to have a child. So it's like, I can't even enjoy the bliss of saying I want to have a baby. So there's still so many things. And then when you take on anybody who does any kind of advocacy work, any kind of coaching, any kind of life coaching, you take on other people's issues too. So I carry the burden of a lot of women. I carry a lot of people's secret in me. I carry a lot of stuff that I can't speak about except when I go to therapy. I'm very confidential about the information, but I have to make sure that I'm going to therapy. I have to make sure that I have mental health days, because I still deal with depression from time to time. I still have anxiety from time to time, because when you're living with HIV, the chances of you dealing with a mental illness is 1 in 4. 1 in 4 people living with HIV deal with mental illness. So that's a real thing. And when I'm going through, I'm still getting inbox and people still are leaning on me and pulling on me. So I still have to keep my mind and my spirit and my body together to do this work. So just because you see this, I always try to dispel that myth so much. So, and I even have created a group for other advocates so that we can lean on each other, because being public with your status is a whole nother thing. And I want to get to a place where if you choose to go public, that's your choice, but you can still get help and not go public with your status, because everybody's not called to be an advocate. Some are called to do books. Some of us are called to do fashion design. Some of us are called to the medical field. Some of us are called to help children. We all still have a purpose, regardless of a diagnosis. And that's where I just need all women, period, not just people overcoming HIV, but overcoming other things. We all have a purpose, and you deserve to walk in it. You deserve that. No matter what you've been through, you deserve to walk in it. And yes, it takes a lot, and yes, it's some work, but in the end, it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing to walk in purpose. So for me, the good outweigh the bad, but every day is not 100% day. Some days it's one of those 5% days where I got to shut everything down and I got to disappear for a minute and get back to my place of peace.
That self-care is so important.
Yes, it is.
I did not know about the 1 in 4. That speaks volumes, because when you think about any health issue and mental illness, it's like everything just piles on top.
Yeah.
It's such a heavy burden for so many people. And because mental health and mental illness is still another topic that is very taboo, especially in the African American community.
Yeah.
It's not something we want to talk about. It's that secret box that's sitting on the mantle. Don't nobody want to open it, move it.
Yeah. No.
Everybody see it, but don't nobody want to talk about it.
Yep. And they just want to tell everybody that all you got to do is pray, and you got to do more than pray.
Come on in.
You have to. We got a mind, body, and a spirit. So you take care. You can't just pray weight away. You got to work out, right? You can pray about your depression. I know, right? I wish. But they say, the word says faith without works is dead. So your work is to take care of your mental health. So yes, prayer works. Like, I'm not taking away from prayer, because I pray all the time. But also, I have to make sure I'm going to therapy. I journal a lot. I write everything. But that's my coping mechanism. And it's important that we have healthy coping mechanisms, because if not, you're going to things like alcohol and drug use. And none of those are good for living with HIV. And I've been through my share of doing things like drinking a lot of alcohol I used to smoke cigarettes. I've been through those things because I'm trying to cope with what I'm dealing with. I'm dealing with anxiety. I'm dealing with HIV. So coping, you have to make sure you have good coping mechanisms. You cannot self-medicate. You got to have good coping mechanisms. So pray and do something else. Ask God what the work is that you need to do for your mind. So,
and them coping mechanisms is whew.
Yes,
Something else. Because if
they
you don't
are.
have them in place, this is the thing, we forget life still happens.
Yeah.
Like we wish that we could get a bad diagnosis like this and just be able to stop everything else from happening and just work on this.
Yes,
right?
yes.
That's the perfect model. Okay, I've been diagnosed with HIV. In my voice, world stop. Let me work on this. And then I'll get back to y'all. But it doesn't work that way.
It doesn't.
So found what was the most strenuous thing that you had to deal with in handling, okay, the diagnosis and advocacy and, working with other people. And then I still have that.
Yeah.
I can't leave that alone or that'll fall apart.
I guess for me, the hardest thing that I've had to overcome has been my mental health. That's been the biggest struggle because it's a very mental illness. Like just to have HIV mentally, it strains on you because you start asking, why can't I just be like everybody else? Like, why can't I do what everybody else do? Why do I have to take a pill every day? And I would get triggered by my medication. Like the bottle, I can't even keep my medicine in a bottle. Speaking of what I go through, I have to keep it in a pill case because just picking up the bottle, it triggers something in my head and reminds me, you ain't gonna never get rid of this. And I don't believe that. Let me come out of agreement with it anyway. I don't believe that. I believe that God can heal. But I just do my part by taking my medication. So that has been some of the hardest things to overcome. And also just staying adherent to medications and doctor's appointments. Because when you are going through anxiety, depression, or you're sick or something, you'll forget to take your medication and you look up, it's been 3 days. We don't have to take 10 pills. We take one. Well, it just depends on people's regimens, but most people take 1 to 2 pills, but each pill is a combination drug. So like my pill, I take, it's 4 pills, it's 4 medicines in 1 pill. So I take that once a day, but it's like birth control. You got to take it every day, same time. Every day, same time. And I struggle with birth control. So remembering to take medications has been one of the most difficult things I've gotten through. And I've done every 6 months or so, I got to change my methods up just so I can kind of trick my brain to like, you're going to take this medication today. Like, just because unfortunately, as much control as we want to have, sometimes we don't have as much control as we think we have about our mental health. So I've been through periods where I just don't want to deal with it. And then I have to tell myself, taking this protects you and your husband. Taking this keeps you undetectable. And I thank God that I have been able to maintain my undetectable status for a very, very long time at this point. Because if you mess that up, you go backwards in medication. I'm not trying to go backwards. I want to continue to take the best thing that they have that I can take. So
now that's something else to understand as well, is that, consistency and that repetition.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's the thing that we fight the most.
Yeah.
We fight consistency. We fight repetition because we're like, oh, I get tired of doing the same thing.
Yeah.
I get tired of having to have the same routine, and it's
every day.
It's like, no, I don't want that same routine. I got to find something to spice it up. Well, but this is, okay, I speak life. And in order for me to live the life that I speak, I have to have this consistency.
Yes. Yeah, you do. You have to, and that's how you have to continue to talk to yourself. Like I started to really get into saying declarations in the morning, affirmations in the morning, and prayer in the morning. Because I realized when I did it, that's when I would find myself being all over the place, just in general. And then when I'm all over the place, that flows into if I'm taking my medicine tonight, if I'm going to go to that doctor's appointment because I don't feel like it. And before I actually was on medication, because recommendations have changed now. In the beginning, I didn't have to, all I had to do was go to the doctor every 3 to 6 months. And they would see if I needed medicine or not. And if I didn't, I was good to the next appointment. I spent like a year away because since I wasn't taking medicine, I felt like, I don't got to go see that doctor. I don't want to. And I spent that year away. And when I went back, my numbers had risen and I needed medication. And I'm like, that's when I realized, like, Nakeisa, you can't just not go to the doctor. And this was years ago. This is the very early years of my diagnosis. And it was like, you can't just not do it. And I remember the day I found out I had to take medicine, I sat in the bathroom and cried because it became real to me. That, it was real now, because I always would say, I'm not never taking medicine, because I really honestly deep down wanted to die. And if this could take me out, I'll let it. That was my mindset in the beginning, deep down. But once I started taking medicine, I realized I actually kind of felt better. I had a little bit more energy. And it just felt good to me to be doing something about something somebody told me that you ain't gonna live. So to be feeling like I can fight back now. I got medicine, I can fight back. I got God, I can fight back. I don't have to accept what you call me or what you say about me. I can fight back now. So it's been a powerful experience. So
I love it.
yeah.
Because there are so many others that are listening, that may be listening in, that may know somebody that's HIV positive, matter of fact, there may be people listening in who they're scared to get their status.
Yeah.
There's that nagging, like, you need to go and get tested, but there's that fear in the back of your head going,
yeah.
Scared to do that. What if it is positive? What then?
Yep.
So I want to make sure that I'm adamant about people understanding. Get tested. It is necessary for not just you, but for everyone around you.
Yeah.
It's very necessary to go and get tested.
Yeah. So yes, I want you guys to get tested, and I also want to tell you guys that if you know that you are in a situation where you may be put at risk for HIV, there is something called PrEP, and that's pre-exposure prophylaxis. And as long as you get tested every 3 months and take that pill every day, you can prevent contracting HIV. That's another harm reduction strategy. So there is a pill. So it's very important to get tested, because I do understand that there are some people who may not have that option, because people still have to deal. Some people are sex workers. Some people may be dealing with a domestic violence situation, and everybody's story isn't my story. So I just want to encourage you that you can get tested. And if your test is if you're negative, you can get on PrEP. PrEP is something that insurance companies are covering. There are resources. So don't feel like you can't. I just want everybody to protect themselves as much as you can. So, and condoms still work. If you can get a condom on, please put a condom on. They're 70 to 80% effective still. So just get educated and learn and get tested. Step 1, get tested, because that is why there's still an epidemic. 1 in 7 people living with HIV don't know they have HIV. And if you learn you have it, you can get on treatment, which makes you get you to a place of undetectable. And if you do have it, and if you don't have it, you can get on PrEP if you qualify or if you know, and then get tested with your partner. Get tested with your partner. So that's just what I want to say, because it's really affecting women, because there are men having sex with men who's like the number one affected group, and then they go and have sex with women. So then we're right up under that. So that's just the world we live in. There's no need to live in a false reality. It's the reality of what is going on in our world today. And so we just have to all do our part.
Most definitely. And I appreciate you and applaud you for doing above and beyond your part. Because what you are doing is definitely above and beyond. So let everyone know how they can reach out to you and how they can get in contact with you if they do have questions and they're like, well, I'm not quite sure I'm there yet to go and walk into an office and say, this is what I actually need.
Okay. Well, you can find me on all social media platforms Nikki J. D. Arthur. And my website is NakeisaJackson.com. But if you find me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, inbox, well, not Twitter, of course, but Facebook and Instagram, inbox me. I'm mainly on Facebook. Nikki J. The Arthur. I also have a nonprofit called Anaya Space. You can find it on Facebook too. And we host community events, and we'll be hosting events all year. And then you'll get access to the book. This book is on Amazon too. So this book, it shares my story, but it also includes tips for, like, if you're newly diagnosed, if you're having problems with disclosure, or if you have a loved one. Say you get this book, you want to know what your loved one could possibly be going through. You get this book, and I give you tips about how you can handle it if your loved one discloses, how you should respond to that. If somebody you're dating tells you they have HIV, what's the best way to respond, whether you are willing to accept it or not, because at the end of the day, it's your choice. But being respectful about how you respond to it. So that's how you can find me. And yeah, that's it. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate you for saying yes to being on the show. So guys, you guys know we always bring you every bit of the gambit, every bit of the spectrum when it comes to what success looks like. I know some of you, it may not be a positive when you're, an HIV positive response. Some of you, it may be that you've received that you have cancer. Some of you, it may be something else. I understand, but I want you to understand as well is that there is life after, just like there is life after HIV. There is life after the diagnosis, and you can definitely, become the advocate. You can definitely be the person that is a voice for others who are in your same predicament. So I appreciate you guys. Make sure that you go and leave us a review. Let us know how this episode resonated with you. And until next time, guys, don't forget to press it out. See ya.